Magic. You know that cool thing that people do with cards and chopping people in half? Yeah? Well, I suck at it. So basically in this video, I'm going to be faking 3 of the most common and popular magic tricks with the power of video editing. And I'll also be doing a breakdown of how every trick was done, so you can have a crack at doing it yourself or something. And even if you don't care about that sort of stuff, it's still interesting to see how it was done. And the tricks get cooler as the video goes on, so make sure you stick around until the end. Anyways, let's get started. So here I have a totally legitimate, 100% not rigged playing card. And with just the swipe of a finger, it will change. On the whole, I think this trick looks pretty good. It's relatively convincing and it was super easy to make. I recorded the base video and then imported it into After Effects, along with a photo of the card that I was going to magically change it into. From there, I scaled the card so that it would roughly fill the same space as the first one. And then I created what's known as a mask of where the card was meant to show up. And then I did that for the duration of the clip. And to finish it off, I did a little bit of color correcting to make the card look like it isn't completely fake. And finally, I feathered the edges along the x-axis to create some motion blur. Super simple, super cool. As you can see, I have 3 ordinary, completely empty cups that have definitely not been tampered with. And a marble. All you have to do is follow the marble and tell me where it ends up. Here goes. So I'm just switching around the cups, slowly and easily. Surely you'll be able to find it at the end. And if you thought it was in here, you suck at this. I'm sorry, but you do. Because it's actually under this cup. To make this, I imported the base clip of me doing the trick. And as you can see, the ball did in fact end up under that cup. And I also imported a photo of just the marble as well. Then, the first thing I did was move the marble into place where I wanted it to be, and masked it to look like it was appearing there. As you can tell, this did not look suspicious at all. The shadow had completely stopped and the ball was kind of ugly if I'm being honest. So I duplicated the base clip and masked around the shadow that would be normally covering the ball. Lowered the opacity and then it almost looked semi-decent. With some simple color corrections, the ball itself is finished. And one thing I just want to point out real quick. I know the marble looks kind of fake, but I think that's got more to do with being glossy than me sucking. For once, it's not actually my fault. Here's a side-by-side of a real marble and my fake one. They both look out of place. But that was the easy part. Next up I had to make the marble disappear from the other cup. And yeah, that didn't go very well. The first thing I tried was use the software magic of content-aware fill to hide it. For those of you that don't know what it does, it basically gets rid of stuff in your videos. Yeah, that's it. But I had no idea what I was doing and half the time it just gave me error messages and blank screens. But with some persistence, I got it to work. Actually, no I didn't. Please explain this. Yo, if anyone watching this actually knows how to use content-aware fill, hit me up. And the next thing I tried was use the clone stamp tool. It sounds kinda fancy, but it basically does the same thing. Well, it's supposed to. In true 2020 fashion, wait, it's 2021 now, I can't make those jokes. It did nothing. Thank you, After Effects. In the end, I just got lazy and took a screenshot of the cloth and just slapped it on top of the ball. It looked garbage no matter how much I masked and color corrected it. There were these ugly shadows everywhere, so I just rage quit for a while. I returned the next day, eager to suck a little bit less. So I just scaled up the image and made it cover the ugly bits and feathered it way too much. Doesn't sound like a big change, but look at the difference it made. And that was the second trick done. As you can see, I have 3 totally legit playing cards, 2 2s and an ace. If I put them all together with the ace on top, like so, and then if I were to move the ace onto the bottom, where would the ace be? No, it's not on the bottom. You might think it's on the top, but no. Is it in the middle? Well, of course not. And at this point you might be skeptical that I have an ace, but I assure you, there is one. Okay, you're not too good at this, so let's try and find a 2 instead. There's not one on top. Is there a 2 in the middle? No, there's not. Okay, I think you're really struggling with this, so one last game. If I show you these 2 cards here, all you have to do is guess what this one is. Well, you were wrong. And if the card said it, hey, it must be true. Oh, and before I talk about how this was made, can we just take a second to appreciate how wobbly that ace is, like a minute of silence or something? First time I saw it, I literally started laughing. Making this trick was way too hard, and if I learnt one thing doing it, it's that I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I think that showed through in the final product. Again, I imported the footage and some screenshots of the playing cards. Remember them as they come back to haunt me. So basically to do this, I needed to motion track the cards onto the other ones. Sounds simple enough, but there was something I had forgotten. I'm really bad at motion tracking. Like really bad. The first thing I did was just to do a 2-point track of opposite corners. Ugh, that ain't pretty. I then fiddled around with tracking the camera, but it just gave me error messages. Do you remember when I said that I was bad at motion tracking? Yeah, I meant it. But then I clicked on some random drop-down menu, and there it was, in all of its majesty, the corner pin perspective track. It just gave me 2 extra tracking boxes so I could make things look 3D. I then lined up my 4 points, did some juicy tracking, and it looked, well, I think you have eyes. And do you remember when I said that those images of cards would come back to haunt me? I just figured out why. You see, the reason that none of the tracks were working was actually quite simple. It's because they were working fine. The way I made those images was I just took a photo of the card and then I removed the background. But those transparent pixels were still part of the image. So when I tracked it, it was lining up those transparent edges with the card, not the card part that I wanted, making it look like, you know, what a bear does in the woods. So I took some new photos and lined them up properly with the edges. And who would have guessed? It worked first time. It's like that old saying, if you're doing a thing and the thing isn't working, you're not doing the thing right. Now that the card was tracking well, all I had to do was make the fingers cover it up. So again, I just created a mask and that was that. Now that I knew what to do, the other couple of cards I needed to make were super easy. And by easy, I mean hard, laborious, and really freaking boring. If you've ever tried tracking the corners of a card, you would know that it doesn't work well at all. There was basically no point even trying, so instead I had to do every single point by hand, manually. I'll tell you now, there's nothing more fun than moving squares onto the edges of white rectangles for hours on end. Finally, there was one thing left to do. Make that subscribe gag at the end. I just used the clone stamp in Photoshop to make a blank card, and added some images onto it, and voila. Back in AE, I repeated the same track as before, and finally, I was done. Wait, I've still got to actually make the video.
Didn't even get to